Welcome, everyone. It's the Mike Tech Show, show number 879. Tonight's show, going to talk about Hurricane Idalia, an update, a new second podcast I'm going to be starting, and it's not tech. And why? And who convinced me? So there's a little tech behind who's talked me into this. Then the email migration story. I got lots of lessons learned and then some listener email. First, the hurricane update. I am so blessed and so lucky that another hurricane has bypassed Oldsmar, Florida. Now, I'm in Pennsylvania right now, and I did not lose internet or power throughout the hurricane. That's because it was like 100 miles off the coast of Tampa, where if you were to draw a line out to sea, and we got hit with a lot of, heavy winds and lots of rain, and there was lots of flooding in the area, but not my development, where I'm part of, thank God. And my prayers and thoughts go to everybody who's had damage in the wake of that. And that's a nerve-wracking thing. And I didn't realize it would be like this, but owning a property in Florida, I mean, it really takes its toll in stressing you out. I mean, it really, really does. So, which leads to, I've already got my plane ticket. I am going down to Florida October 1st. And while I'm there, I am starting, and I'm going to test a new podcast, and it's very limited because it's on the Phillies. And here's why. I have a friend who's also a client. His name's Paul. And he called me and said, Mike, I listen to your shows. I don't understand a lot of the tech, but I don't understand, why do you not do a Phillies podcast? Because you're so passionate, you're such a fan. You literally own a place in Florida because of spring training. You can cover that, tips and tricks for spring training. I might even try to get some interviews going and some things. So look for me testing that out. Now, I know if you're not a baseball fan, if you're not a Phillies fan, you're not going to, it's not going to be your cup of tea, but it is my passion, and I am going to talk about memorabilia sometimes. I'm not just going to read stats and do. I'm going to bring a lot of opinion, and I'm going to have some fun with it. So going to love getting feedback from that, and let's see what happens. And of course, October, we call around here Red October because the Phillies color red, and that's playoff time. And right now, it's looking like they are going to make the playoffs. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I will be, little updates on Facebook, Twitter, and the website. I'm going to make a separate website for all of this and get it out there. So anyway, let's see what happens. And now, here's the tie-in with tech. Paul, the reason that I didn't realize something when we were talking. I have been his tech support for over 30 years. I didn't realize that. That's a long time. And he said, did you ever tell the story that cemented me as to why I'm a client and why I can't ever think of using anyone else? It is a great story. And I don't believe I've ever talked about it, so I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm going to tease you, because Paul said, since I didn't, he says, you have to talk about it, and you got to name me in the show, and I will be live in the chat when you're talking about it. And I'm like, oh, I got to do that. So I'm going to wait. That'll be October. that'll be in a few weeks, but I'll make sure Paul's available for that Thursday night. Make sure he's set up with Twitch and in the chat, and he wants to participate while I'm talking about him and going over the story. It is a great story, and I'm really looking forward to that. So a lot of fun. So he's pushed me. So that was and I need that. Matter of fact, my son Ryan pushed me into doing this show. Sometimes even like to go on my own consulting, it's like you need that little push, and then I can take it from there. But sometimes I need, a little whack, and then I can, make it my own and, and do it. So that's why I was like, he's absolutely right. How did I not think, how have I not done a show on that? Because you know how much, and I always talk about the Phillies and bring Phillies into the podcast. So a lot of you who don't like that are going to be happy, because I'll be talking less about the Phillies in the Mike Tech show, especially if I have a second show. And I'm really looking forward to the support show with Paul in the chat, who's the owner of the company. It is a great story. Okay. So now, this past weekend, and it really starts months prior to this weekend, I've taken on, without giving the name away of the company, they're like the HOA for all the businesses on this very busy area in Philadelphia. Okay, like right outside Philadelphia. And they needed some help. And a friend of mine owns a store in that block, and we've worked together in the past, and he is on the board of directors for this company. And so what I'm going to do is hold on a second here. I got to read this. There's no way to ignore tech. The Philadelphia Phillies have partnered with MLB to use their stadium as the site of a pilot program called Go Ahead Entry. Yes. Do you know I've already gotten links to that, Marius, which is pretty cool. And I can't believe you pulled that up, because that is true. They are the Phillies are one of the first places for Citizens Bank Park that is implementing facial recognition for the ticket. And that is kind of cool. And yeah, you're right. That is a crossover topic. I see. Absolutely. I paused the audio portion of the podcast right now. This is all just being recorded on the video as I paused. Marius, good pull, because I've gotten emails on that, and that is going to be great. So you're right. There are going to be some crossovers that I'm going to be talking about. And I've got lots of great ideas of things you would never dream of that I can talk about, bringing the Phillies in baseball, and especially the off season, and especially where I'm at before the regular season starts. Oh my gosh, so much. So, all right. So let's get back here. So one of the problems this organization had was that their current tech support maintains an older server, a virtual exchange server in Hyper-V on the server, and refuses to migrate them to the cloud. And they want to get on the cloud really bad. And the person I know who's on the board, let's get Mike and Mike, MTS Consulting, let's get them on board. Let's move this server to the cloud. Now, for the past couple months, I have been trying to get BitTitan to work with no joy. Man, did I run into problem after problem trying to get BitTitan going, and just no fun at all. BitTitan is a great migration wizard that I have used in the past for a couple clients and have done very successful email migrations where I've migrated from a Gmail, and I talked about it, and I ran into a lot of problems. And before I get to the problems, I gotta also mention this link, which was given to me by Uncle Marv. So, who a lot of you know, who's also a, I'll say, fellow Floridian. Anyway, he likes Code 2. Now, when I tried to get Code 2 working on the Exchange server, what a mess. I could not, Service Pack 1 for Exchange 2010 had to be implemented. .NET 4 had to be installed on that virtual server. There were so many prerequisites that would be normal on a normally maintained server that's been up to date and current. Well, Code 2's would look, I love the menus and everything, and I was going to do it like a test where they only migrate 10 items. And especially when you're launching the app that I downloaded, even downloading the app was no joy because they only had Internet Explorer on that box. I inherited a box that was not maintained, and it's not worth bringing it up, no pun intended, to current code because we're going to get rid of it. And we're talking about 9 mailboxes. So we're not talking about, hundreds of mailboxes. We're only talking 9 mailboxes. But a couple lessons I learned with BitTitan that I have to mention. And one of them is I did not know that Microsoft is depreciating the remote PowerShell protocol in Exchange Online. Are you kidding me? I've had to use that and have mentioned it in shows going back years to implement certain things on the online exchange within Microsoft 365. I've had to use all kinds of different PowerShell scripts to enable things that you can't do through the normal menus. Well, after I learned this with, by the way, I will admit, tech support from Microsoft 365 at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, the guy said, well, this is so complicated. What phone number can I call you right back on? So he called me back and told me about a little command line that I'm going to have the link for this, is to enable remote Exchange PowerShell. So online PowerShell, and what you have to do, and that's one of the links where it talks about the command line that you have to use, and then all the things you have to do to enable or disable. I don't know why I would disable it, okay, maybe for security, but go through this. I actually had to use some of these commands and still had trouble trying to make the connection. It was impossible. I tried to do a test with a couple users and I purchased the user licenses. It's like $15 a license. And I got to admit, for BitTitan, disappointed. Tech support isn't very good and they don't respond real fast. There's a lot of knowledge base articles. Yes, that's true. But just not enough help. And at some point I was like, I'm running into so many problems. What are the new problems I'm going to run into? It's just not worth it. Okay, so here's the plan. I figure, let me export from the server. And of course, there wasn't enough hard drive space on the existing virtual server. So I created a share on the host server. that Exchange sits, created the share. There's enough space. So I'm like, okay, we're going to export. We're going to, get mailbox request and export it to the share on the host server. So I'm doing this test one night a couple weeks ago. Well, that command wasn't supported. It wasn't even there. I had to build the command within the local PowerShell. So, if I find the articles, I'll include them into the show notes too. So I was just blocked every step, every move that I would make for this migration. So once I got it going and I successfully exported the mail for an account, I said, that's it. We put a stake in the ground, and they were so happy. I said, Friday, my son and I were coming out. We're going to be there all day. We're going to export all the mailboxes. Then I'm going to copy them to an external drive. And after we swap their login for the new Microsoft 365 accounts that I've created online, have them log in for that office and import the mail. Well, to add more to this story, half of the machines are Mac, half of the machines are Windows. So Windows machines, piece of cake, no problem. Well, Outlook on the Mac, I don't know how many has played with it, is very different than Outlook for Windows. They may have some similar look and feels, but in the Mac, when you can't just import mail, because when you import it, when we signed in, after I changed the DNS and now had everybody go to a website, the new website for Outlook Web Access, just office.com and click on Outlook, and they logged in, they could get their new email coming in, but the old mail, I got to export. Well, here's the problem. When you're done importing a PST, it's just at the bottom of everything. It doesn't go into the inbox, the calendar. It doesn't put it in the proper place, and you can't control. So we were very lucky, and I'm going to call him out. My friend who is the one who got us this account, his name's Matt, and really good guy, and he is a Mac expert. He said, Mike, you don't worry. I'll be there. You have any questions or any problems on the Mac. Now, he's never done an export-import. So I figured, well, with some of these Mac accounts that are connected to the Exchange server, hey, let me just do an export from there. So we did this with an account that only had 5 gig of mail, so it didn't take that long. So I exported it, and it was some OLM file that I stored on their desktop. Then signed them into their new Outlook, so it only had the current email, and now I clicked import to import. Do you know it still put it at the bottom and put it in another folder that it did not propagate the proper folders into the named existing folders. So inbox didn't go to inbox. Calendar didn't go to calendar. Luckily, 2 of the users that I did this with, and then the one with the PST, they were all okay with that. Because I said, look, it's all there. All you got to do is open that import folder up, and you can cherry pick and just drag and drop up into what you want in the inbox. And, they were all with that. But the people that were not in, I couldn't make that assumption. So it was easier for me to bring those exported files home on a drive, and then on my test system and my son's system, last Friday night, I was up and I attached, I set up a new the profile in Outlook for Windows, imported everything, and then just let it sit overnight and sync up to Microsoft. I left Outlook open on the their machines in that office, and I was able to remote in on Saturday. Everything came down perfectly. So the accounts that I did that for, although a lot of manual work, worked perfectly, except for one account. And this user, she has 32 gig of mail. That's not a great big mailbox, but the file got corrupt in the transfer to the external drive. At the end of the day, I really suspected that on Friday. So user is very patient with this. It's not as important as new messages. So last night, I ran an export after she cleaned a lot of the mailbox while she was connected. I exported that back to the server. My son went out there today, put the drive in, called me. I synchroed in. I copied the file to the external drive. When that was all done, let him know he's able to pull the drive and then bring that to me. And I now have the holiday weekend this weekend to take all that. I'm going to create a new profile for this user and just do the same thing in import. The thing is, the user is not going to be back until Tuesday, and that's when I'm going to call her, and she's going to have to leave her system. I'll change the profile on her Mac and then log in and have it all come down. So I'll have to just sit and wait, and all the messages will just come down. So a long process, but it can be done manual, and this definitely was the maximum obstacles. You know, a virtual exchange that was Exchange 2010. So we're talking pretty old. Nothing updated. And then had to export everything manually and then import it between Windows and Mac. And that's the lesson. If you're going to do this manually and you are exporting to a PST file, even if the end user is a Mac, still use Windows and Outlook for Windows to import all that mail if you're doing it manually. It's the only way. If anybody knows another way. Now remember, the online methods, Code 2, BitTitan, email migration would not work. So if anybody else wants to add any ideas to that, email me, miketechshow@gmail.com. And I will be glad to hear that and share it on a future show. So that's the email migration, and it's still not done. So, but at least it's easy for me to create the profile. I have that file, just start importing it again and just let it go. You know, I don't have to, just babysit it a little bit, just check on it every now and then, just to see what's happening. So now I want to get to some email. And this email is from Israel. As you see below, we also, and this is great, had the Zoom issue that I talked about. And the host file tip didn't resolve it because we had issues with Outlook connecting to Office 365 as well. In 887, you mentioned that you think it's the Verizon Fios router, and that rang a bell because that's the router we had the issue. So I went online searching if there's a firmware update, but I found the following link, and it resolved it on the two networks where we had the issue. The fix is, and I'm going to have the link to this, disable IPv6, TCP, and UDP checksum offloading for the Ethernet NIC. Thank you again, and keep up the great work. We love the show, Israel. Oh, man, thank you so much for that. I love hearing that. And a great link that will be in the show notes. All right. The next two are from Bill. And normally I have these as PDFs. I didn't even have time. It was easier for me to print than to convert it to a PDF. So I'm reading these from paper. This is Bill. Remember I did the show on doing a new system. What do you install on it? This is what Bill installs. Crystal Disk Info. This is a good idea. Helpful to tell a client to click on that. And even yesterday, it identified an overheating disk. Very, very interesting. That's something we may add and put that on all the systems so it's easy for us to run, and have a client run that. He does Shut Up 10. That's a lot of tweaks. Dell Command Update, Patch My PC. Yes, we run Patch My PC, but we don't leave them on the system. See, some of these utilities, Bill, that you use, it would be like handing a loaded gun to a client that doesn't have any training in it and how to use it. And that's what I'm worried about, especially with the CCleaner. He recommends using CCleaner. We use it, but we don't leave it installed because I don't want clients poking around and doing more harm than good. So we always try to use the portable version. We easily transfer it as needed. uBlock Origin browser plugin, absolutely to block things. Foxit Reader. Now, instead of Adobe, my world, it's all Adobe. Everybody just uses Adobe. And if it's not just the free Adobe Reader, then they already have a license for the full Adobe Acrobat. So, thank you. That's great, Bill. And then the final email for the night. An article Bill sent me, and this will also be in the show notes. Western Digital and SanDisk are selling bad hard drives. A California customer has filed a class action lawsuit against Western Digital, the parent company of SanDisk, alleging the company misrepresented the capabilities of its portable SSD products, which have been widely reported to be failing en masse. I have the link for the search that you want to Google, and that's Western Digital and SanDisk selling bad hard drives. If you Google that, you're going to see a lot of articles on this, and that is something I did not know, and I really, really appreciate that, Bill, for sending me the link. That's it for tonight's show, and I have all of this in the show notes that I will be posting up later. And thank you for staying subscribed and listening to the show. And as you noticed, there's no sponsors for the show. But you know what? You want to support the show? There's a donation button. You could do a one-time donation or a regular donation using PayPal, and it would be greatly appreciated. And thank you so much for all of your kindness, all of your support, your continued support of the show. I really, really appreciate it. And don't forget to sign up for the free chat forums on Discord. We have a Discord channel. And if you want to sign up for free, there's a link. Always in every show notes, there's a link. And also this video and all the shows that I record, I post it up on YouTube. So that's youtube.com/Michael Smith MTS. And that is it for tonight's show. And I have been slammed, been so busy and everything happening. That's why the last few weeks, it's been every other week. We're going to try better to keep on track and doing it every Thursday night live as best I can. Thank you. And I'll see you next week. Same time, same channel. Bye-bye, everyone.